If you don't train with a heart rate monitor, let me share with you a simple trick that you can implement on a daily basis to maximize the benefits associated with Zone 2 aerobic training. Hi, I'm Coach Robb, and at the time of this recording, I've been a human performance specialist for over 39 years, going onto my 40th season. I'm a big fan of the Garmin heart rate monitors, but I've been receiving more and more emails from people who are currently using a different platform. And their question is, what if my watch doesn't help me train with heart rate zones? Well, first and foremost, heart rate zones are the most important thing that you need to have knowledge of when it comes to maximizing your training effectiveness. When you train aerobically, you are eliminating the number one physical limiter when it comes to being able to burn body fat. The lower the heart rate, the more body fat you will burn as a percentage of total calories burnt. When you train aerobically, you reduce oxidative stress, you reduce the production of free radicals. Now, if you're new to my videos, first and foremost, welcome, but please don't get overwhelmed. I've talked about this in previous videos, so I don't want you to be overwhelmed, but I do want you to understand the benefit of aerobic training. Well, what if you don't have a watch that does track your heart rate zones? Let me give you a very simple trick that you can implement immediately. When you're exercising, you should be able to converse with somebody. You should be able to sing a song off of your iPhone. You should be able to engage with other people without literally running out of breath. Now, I get this question quite often. What actually does aerobic versus anaerobic mean? When you think about your car's RPM gauges on your dashboard, as you bring the RPMs up, you get to a point where the dashboard is going to be denoted into the red color. In the mechanical world, we refer to that as going into the redline zone. That's when the engine is at its near max capacity from an RPM standpoint, and it is the most detrimental and tears down the engine the quickest. Well, your human body is the exact same way. As you're watching this video, you're staying aerobic. The presence of oxygen in your blood meets the demands of the muscles and everything associated with watching this video. Well, as you start to move, you start swimming, you start cycling, you start running, you start climbing a wall, you go snowboarding. As you bring the heart rate up progressively higher and higher, you move to a point where the muscle's demands for oxygen supersedes the oxygen that's available in the blood. And as you get closer and closer to that point, that's where we go from aerobic, and you cross the threshold into anaerobic without the presence of oxygen. And that's what makes physical activity more and more difficult. That would be your threshold of fatigue. And ironically, this is what they refer to as your anaerobic threshold. The point where you could be, I'm just going to use some very loose heart rate numbers. You could be at a heart rate of 145 and feel great, go to 148 and you can't catch your breath. You've crossed the anaerobic threshold. And what's interesting about the anaerobic threshold, it is a very, very, very fine line. Now that you understand the difference between aerobic and anaerobic threshold, when you're training, you're exercising with somebody or by yourself, if you can't carry on a conversation, that ability to communicate is going to show you where that threshold is at, where the presence of oxygen is not high enough to meet the demands of the muscles. And the beautiful part about the word anaerobic threshold is focus on the word threshold. It can be elevated, it can be improved. And this is where we get into the science of performance on the load, the intensity, the duration, and the duration against the rest interval. We call that the work-rest ratio. As you play with those different variables, you can increase somebody's anaerobic threshold. This was a great question. I hope that this has answered the question for you. How do you train if you don't have a heart rate monitor? If you're running out of breath, you're simply running too hard. Slow down. And I would highly encourage you, if you're not using a Garmin, and I don't get paid by Garmin, I would highly encourage that you if you're not training with a Garmin heart rate monitor, I would highly encourage you to do so. Not only is it going to help you get quantified data about the work that you're doing, it will also help you on the recovery side as well. Those two together elevate your health, wellness, and ultimately performance. I do have Garmin products on our Amazon store. Like I said, I don't get paid to sell Garmin's, but I do have them available in the store here in the description box below. When you look at those products, you'll notice there'll be 3. heart rate monitor, a scale, and a chest strap. And it just, the utilization of all three of those resources is just going to make it easier for you to capture data, and it's our job to help you interpret it. As I said earlier, I can't thank you guys enough for the questions that you sent in. The number of questions coming in week over week is exponentially growing, and I appreciate that because it tells me that you're listening and it's stirring up more and more questions, and that's what we're here for. Every day we answer a question on YouTube. So if you haven't liked and subscribed, I would encourage you to do so. Turn on the notifications, because when you send us an email, we are going to get back to you and we're going to convert your question into a video like you see here today. If you want to send us one, please do so. contact@coachrobb.com. I want to personally thank you for your time, support of the channel, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.